I know that your powers of perception are as wet as a warthog's backside, but thick as you are, pay attention, for my words are a matter of pride. It's clear from your vacant expressions. The lights are not on upstairs, but we're talking GW successions. Your wallet cannot be caught unawares.
In other words, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fluffenhammer. We are all destitute.
It's getting worse, Adam. It's getting worse. What I'm looking at now is perhaps some sort of genetic modification whereby I can digest plastic. That would actually work out for me really bloody well.
So you chop everything off the sprues and then absorb the sprue in order to survive.
Exactly
yeah, okay, I can see
exactly that. Kind of, sort of. It's like the process in the body that creates keratin.
Yeah.
But it uses plastic.
So what you're saying is it creates some kind of chitinous armor that just grows out of you.
So I'll eventually develop a plastic exoskeleton and start looking like some Dark Souls creature. Which would be fitting, considering some of the design choices Games Workshop have been using.
That's very true. There's been a...
don't get me wrong, ladies and gents. That is not a complaint. I friggin' love the Dark Souls games, and I love the look of them. And if Games Workshop is going to take particularly AOS down that route, then fine. That's all good for me.
You're not wrong. There's it's actually an interesting point, and we are going to get into the main topic shortly. I promise. I'm not going to push for too long, but this is something I really think is an interesting conversation. When AOS hit, there was a certain amount of issue with how bright and shiny it was. The grimdark, blood and dirt mentality of the old world had vanished.
Yeah. The sort of medievalism of the old world, you know? The old world had this slight medievalism about it. Well, whereas AOS
it was low
not.
fantasy. You know, that's exactly what it was, and that's what it was there to do. It was there to be low fantasy and dark fantasy. What has started to happen, especially since Soul Wars, has been this introduction of a very gothic manner, and it's allowed the designers to really push in envelopes that they've never been able to push before. When you look at stuff like the Maya-Morn Banshees, there's a certain amount of Japanese influence on there, and I don't mean that as in an anime.
Like anime. No, it's
traditional.
It's more of the over-elaboration, isn't it? You know? There is this very distinct aesthetic creeping in, it seems to me, which is removing AOS from the fantasy battle world, which, it can only be a good thing.
It can, because...
I know that there's a lot of sentiment out there about the old world because it's what we grew up with, you know, it's what we first operated in. But I'll be honest with you, Adam, it for me, it's don't let the door hit you on the way out, you know? The mortal realms for me are just so much more attractive on almost every level, aesthetically, in terms of their storytelling, their mythology, their metaphysics is brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, it's wonderful.
It's the difference between... Actually, no, another way of putting that. The old world had its time and its place. You know,
absolutely, it did.
You would never have been able to launch something like the Mortal Realms back in the early 80s. It wouldn't... No, it wouldn't fly.
It would have been too
completely.
abstract. It wouldn't have flew. It would have been too abstruse.
In the same way that if you tried to launch the old world now, it's so derivative at this point...
It'd fall flat, wouldn't it? I mean, especially with the advent of the internet, so people would be very aware of the influences that it's drawing from, and they'd just say, oh, well, that's just the Lord of the Rings, oh, that's just the Hobbit, oh, it's a rip-off, you know? That's what would happen. With the establishment of the old world, you had the foundations. It built the audience, it built the back mythology. the mortal realms are like the extension of that, the natural extension of that, quite frankly was held back far too long.
Yeah, I agree.
You know? It's what it should have been for the longest time, and I love the dynamism of it. I think we've said this so many times on this show. I love the dynamism of that state of play. I won't call it a universe because it's not. It's a multiverse, really.
Yeah,
isn't
it's just different planes of existence. It's goblins all the way down.
Yeah. It does have. I mean, it's funny you should mention that because, like, Terry Pratchett draws on very much the same kind of influences. You know, the slightly Hindu sort of influences, and you have those elements in AOS. In its mythology, in its background, in its sort of paganism, you know, with its multiple gods, they were all elemental, they're all aspects of something in mortal life. It's so cool. I've got to say, I'm much more attracted to the mortal realms on a personal level. As a writer, you know, as a writer, I'm more attracted to the mortal realms because the freedom of it, the sheer freedom of it. It was not the case in the fantasy battle universe, the old world, that I could create my own civilization and have it operate without particular strictures because the land was mapped out, the culture was so defined, and the metaphysics was so defined. It had to operate within very particular parameters. That's not the case in the mortal realms. You can locate some empty bit of land on the map of Akshi and you can create a civilization or a tribe of fire people. You know, and you can have them be what you like. Maybe they're civilized. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're tribal. Maybe they're cannibal. It can be whatever you like. Maybe they're like Bedouin. Maybe they're nomads who roam across the ash wastes. You know, and suddenly you've got a story. You've got a story there, and it fits. It works.
All right. Let's see. Ashqui nomads, traveling library, the entire knowledge of the Age of Myth in one travelling caravan.
Brilliant.
They move from place to place, trying to give out the knowledge wherever they can.
Often resisted by the cultures they come
completely and utterly.
You know, there's like a sort of xenophobic thing going on. You've got tensions for a mythology and a story there automatically.
There we go.
Automatically, you've got a story from that. Write it from the perspective of like a young person in this caravan who's maybe born to this tradition, who feels restricted by it, you know, and is kind of tantalized by the new civilizations they come to, but is warned against it by their elders. You know, we have a duty, we have a sacred task. You've got like very classic mythological archetypes to play with there, and it's great fun. It's great fun being able to do that.
I mean, what you could do is give them a slightly North, sort of American Indian, Native American bent, call them the Garuda, and they actually fly from place to place holding scrolls, and that's where all the knowledge is kept. So it's not in books, it's all in scrolls, this unwieldy bags and things just off these, these flying, I want to say flying caravan, but that gives the idea of the actual rolling vehicle.
Yeah.
You know, it's that simple. I mean...
And you could do it. You couldn't have gotten away with
this
that.
Would be a fun game to do, actually, which is get somebody to give you a realm and two keywords. Make a society.
Yeah. Make a society, make a culture. Ooh, it'd be so much fun. This is what it's done. It's opened up like the fantasy universe in the same way that 40k is open, you know? Because in 40k, obviously, you've got the whole universe and then some, you know? So you could, if you want in 40k as a writer to create a civilization, you can do it. You just, you have a world or a star system or a far-flung colony or something, or a world in like it's saturated by the warp in a warp storm or something, and you can do whatever the hell you like. That's why I've always been more attracted to the science fiction setting. But now that's changing. That's changing because of the nature of the mortal realms, because the potential for storytelling and this kind of mythology building is so profound. I kind of like it.
I'm with you 100%. Right then. Yes.
Anywho, there's stuff that we need to talk about. The stuff that we need to discuss. The stuff that's going to hurt my wallet.
Oh no, that's the next podcast. Is the stuff that's going to hurt your wallet. And
no, this stuff too. It's like too much. Games Workshop. It's so good. I love being able to have this complaint.
Before we get going though, there's something that I need to draw our attention to.
Okay.
Because I've got a feeling that as we talk today, it's going to answer the question that we set up for the last Fluffenhammer Asks, which was, of course,
what was it?
What's in the middle of the swirl at Vigilus?
I won't spoil it. I do know. I won't spoil it, but I do know because I've read the spoilers before I got the book, which was a mistake, really. But,
yes, that's something.
Yeah, I do. I think most people out there will probably know what's in the middle of the sprawl.
I was very upset to find I was wrong, because
you were wrong, but it doesn't matter because you're kind of right, because it looks like it's what you guessed is going to happen.
Yeah,
anyway.
That's true enough, actually. Yeah.
So it's obviously going to happen anyway, so it doesn't matter. It kind of doesn't matter.
So,
I mean, first of all, did we discuss I can't remember in the last episode? Did we discuss Abby Dabby Doodah?
We did. Yes, we discussed the.
We did discuss Abby Dabby Doodah.
We have discussed Abby Dabby Doodah. We've discussed the Abaddon and Abaddon-off. The bad off ship.
Yes, that's right. Abadas, all that stuff. The silly jokes of it. But he's just the beginning.
He is. Yes.
He's just the beginning. We had that teaser with the Havoc that everybody loved more than Abaddon, which made me smile, I must say. I loved it. I loved going onto the forums and seeing like, oh yeah, Abaddon's great, but look at this! Look at the guy with the little claws on his feet and the big autocannon. He's wonderful.
So, before we get going, because I'm aware that once we get started, we're not going to be able to stop. It's going to be a tidal wave of discussion.
No, I'm afraid it is, yeah.
So the Fluffenhammer asks, Christopher Carlson says, hashtag Fluffenhammer asks, remember, always have to hashtag it or else I won't find it.
Yeah.
I quite like how this is a narrative. Out of the swirl steps the demon Primarch Angron, who then introduces his new tag team partner, the demon Primorc Tuska Demon Killer. They start cutting a promo about how they're going to mess you up. Then they point to the Terramania XL sign that is also in the swirl, and Abaddon turns to say, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah,
which I quite like.
I quite like that one. Yeah.
And we also,
I like the idea of Angron teaming up with orcs. I mean, that kind of makes sense.
Tuska Demon Killer is the one on the Demon World of Khorne. He's the
so that makes a lot of sense.
He's the one that continues to fight and die, and then Khorne resurrects him again because he enjoys the amount of blood.
Because Khorne likes the orcs.
Khorne loves orcs.
He's got a real sentiment for the orcs. I kind of love that.
He looks at them very fondly.
Yeah, it must be the only thing that Khorne does look on fondly.
He actually likes the orcs more than his own followers.
I think he probably does, you know.
So Alan John Wilkinson on the Twitter asks, hashtag Fluffenhammer asks, within the swirl is a single solitary chocolate orange, surprisingly well preserved, left upon a pedestal, inscribed with the legend, in memory of Dawn. The rest is illegible due to unexplained damage.
It's the last relic of the world that was, of like terror in its lost ages. You know, this ancient orb of mystical power.
And his second one was, the only other clue perhaps is a mysterious graffiti on a nearby wall, which appears to translate as follows. No matter what anyone tells you, I am not a sandwich. MLT.
All right, fair enough.
So, thank you very much. At the end of the show, we'll throw up another Fluffenhammer Asks, because
Absolutely,
Fluffenhammer Asks is great fun. It's
well, they're always abstruse. They're always a bit
this is
out
why
there,
I like our followers. Our fan base is wonderful because they're all very imaginative.
Yeah, I must say, I know we say it a lot, but I think our community is one of the best out there in the Games Workshop.
Yeah, without getting egotistical about it, I just like the fact that people have this level of imagination and they're happy to bring it to bear.
Me too. I mean, when it's the best, I mean, I think it's the friendliest. I think it's one of the most inventive. I think it's one of the ones that doesn't take it too seriously, you know. Which
Speaking
I like.
of not taking things too seriously, let's talk about the state of your finances for the next year, George.
Well, as I said, eating plastic is probably it, to be honest, or polystyrene. You know those packing peanuts that come in packages and whatnot. Those foam peanuts. It's going to have to be them in a broth or a soup or something for the next couple of years, to be honest, because Vigilus Ablaze has dropped, and with it, unexpectedly, lots of stuff. I mean, this is the book that they're using to update Chaos, basically, to bring it in line with the more updated armies, particularly with the Space Marines, it seems. So the whole book looks like it's more or less about chaos. It's all about the Chaos Forces, really. So you've got in the book not only the background for the next part of Vigilus, where Abaddon and the Black Legion and their allies descend on Vigilus, you've also got loads of rules, way more than I ever expected to see. I thought we were just going to get, like, you know, little updates for maybe the traitor legions, maybe some special detachments, but there's way more than that. There's way more than that. There's specialist detachments for all sorts of the types of chaos armies that you can make. And they're all loosely based around the ethoses of a particular legion, but they're not restricted to them. So the potential now for creating chaos armies is insane. You can whatever your imagination comes up with, you can create. So there's like a super heavy detachment, basically, which is based on the Iron Warriors, but it's not exclusive to them. So you can just as happily take an Emperor's Children force with this detachment, or a World Eaters force, or whatever you like. There's a detachment based on the Night Lords, which is the Host Raptorial, yeah, which is all based around raptors, fast attack, diminishing leadership, all that kind of thing. But it's not exclusive to them. You can make and then you can mix and match these detachments. Let's not forget that. In a single army, you know, you could have a small one of the Host Raptorial, and then another one based on one of the other detachments in a single army. So the potential is huge. This is on top of the stuff like the Demonkin stuff, the new units that we got from Shadow Spear. It's lunatic. It's absolutely lunatic. We've also got enormous updates throughout the Chaos Codex. So the new Havocs have hit. And they are stunning.
Absolutely amazing.
The models are, for a unit that's been largely derogated over the last couple of years. I mean, Havocs have always been rather boring, to be honest. Most people don't use them because they're just like Space Marine Devastators, but not as good. These miniatures, they've just gone to town with them. You know what they've really done? What they've done is they've looked at what they want Chaos to be, like the Chaos Space Marines, how they relate to their weapons and their armor, but also the warp itself. So they, like a lot of the more recent Chaos designs, have started to mutate and transform based on their function. So based on what they do and what they obsess over. So if you look, they're actually bound to their weapons. And their armor has changed to better suit their function. So they now have these stabilizing claws coming out of their boots, which actually have an effect in-game. The Havoc entry has been updated. So now those stabilizing boots allow them to move and fire their heavy weapons without penalty.
Wow.
Yeah, suddenly, Havocs, one of the units that nobody ever took, have suddenly become really bloody attractive. You've also got that new weapon, that new autocannon thing, which chucks out loads of shots. Now, what I'm thinking is, because, you know, I like Slaanesh rather a lot, and there's a very lovely Slaanesh stratagem in the Chaos Codex that allows units to fire twice in one turn. I'm thinking you equip every Havoc with one of those autocannons, which chucks out ridiculous amounts of shots per turn, and then you use that stratagem.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, like, how many shots, what's like the maximum amount of shots you can get out of that? I imagine quite a lot.
Are we talking upward?
We're talking, like, the upwards, we're talking over 50 shots
Really?
per turn. Yeah.
Oh my word.
This is it's lunatic. The amount of shots you can get out of a unit with that is just insane. They can potentially now, if you can maneuver them correctly, desolate entire units. They're very good. And that's good because, of course, we also have the updated obliterators, which kind of fulfill the same function.
Yeah.
So they do need to have that competitive edge. Not only that, of course, we've got the new miniatures, which we discussed last time, which are absolutely beautiful. But the obliterators themselves have been updated to make them more functional, to make them work a bit better. And bloody hell, do they? Do they work? Now, the fact that they are so tough and that they can also spew out loads of shots per turn. I think all their weapons are Assault 6 now.
Right.
Just by standard,
Great.
which is amazing. But they can also teleport. They can deep strike in, which is a massive advantage over their Space Marine equivalents, which are, of course, the Centurions. The Centurions can't teleport. these guys can. So you can position obliterators exactly how and where you want them. That's amazing. That's absolutely brilliant. We got the new Terminators. The new Chaos Terminators, which are just all they've done really is taken the old ones and just updated them a little bit, made them a bit bigger, added in a few more details, a few extras, but that's fine. They look great. They've got that very classic tusked helm.
That's what I was going to say. I'm so happy to see that the tusks have stayed in. It's one of the things I've always loved about Chaos Terminators. They look like not only will they shoot and claw and rend you to bits, but they might just stick you on a tusk for the hell of it.
Absolutely, they look really barbaric, don't they? Which suits Chaos Terminators. I mean, that's what they are. You have to get a suit of Terminator armor in the Chaos Legions and the Renegade chapters. You need to fight for it. It's a mark of honor. You need to kill whoever's wearing it, basically, and take it for yourself. So these guys are like the most brutal. They're the most brutal of a very brutal bunch. So to have them being slightly barbaric looking, and they've also, if you notice, they've all got like pelts and things on now.
Yes.
They've got like loincloths made of fur and skin and whatnot that you can hang on them, which works really well with their background and their aesthetic. Also, new detachment for them as well as part of the Black Legion. You can get the Bringers of Despair now, and they work beautifully. They're really, really cool. It's an entire detachment you can get for the Black Legion, which it doesn't just function with regards to Terminators. There are other units you can put in it too, but it makes them absolutely brutal. There's a stratagem you can apply to them when they're within, I think it's within so many inches of, a warlord. They count any model they remove as a casualty in assault as 2 models for the purposes of morale.
Right.
Which basically means that those units are going to be ripping through much bigger units than they otherwise would.
Yeah.
You can actually throw them at, swarm units, say, Tyranids.
What I was thinking is that they're horde killers, aren't they?
Yeah, that's exactly it. That is exactly it. That you can imagine them sort of brutalizing their way through entire ranks of Imperial Guard, That's kind of what they're there for. It's very cool. It's very characterful because, of course, the Black Legion are all about their commanders. That's kind of where they come from. They worship their lieutenants and their officers. So to be in the sight of one of their warlords, they will fight all the more, And of course, you apply that when you can definitely apply it when Abaddon is on the battlefield, So to make them even worse.
Yeah.
It's very cool, I've got to say. But you know what? They've also updated the Chaos Space Marine Codex to include all of this stuff.
You know something? That completely passed me by.
Stuff.
I hadn't realised they brought out a new Chaos Space Marine Codex.
Yes, it's Chaos Space Marines Mark II. It's the same codex, but it's been updated. So all of the point adaptations, all of the new additions, all of the new warlord traits and stratagems and detachments, the updated units are all in the Chaos Codex now.
Right.
Cool, eh? They also released, if you've got the digital version, you update it for free.
That's cool.
That's cool, isn't it? That's really nice.
I think
that's really cool.
Nice.
Something that old Games Workshop wouldn't have done. They'd have charged you for it. But new Games Workshop have done, which I bravo.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, that's...
Bravo.
Well, that's how you make a good customer base.
Absolutely. You don't even need to buy the new Chaos Codex. All these rules are for free. You can get them on the Games Workshop website. They're all for free, all these updates. But I've bought it anyway out of good faith, I've bought it out of good faith, and also because I want it. I want the updated codex. It's just my nature. It's the completionist in me. But do you know what really surprised me about the Vigilus book? And it really took me by enormous surprise. Very happy indeed. We were discussing it on the last episode of the Fluffenhammer. We were talking about how moving forward it looks like Games Workshop are going to be looking at the legions.
Yes.
Which is what people want. It is what people want. But what really surprised me, but what we were lamenting, was the fact that it's a shame that the Renegades aren't getting a little bit of background and aren't getting a little bit of attention. Well, says Games Workshop, hold my beer, And it goes nuts. It's like, we know that people like the Renegades too, and that there's a need for new stuff in, new background, new color schemes, just different to demonstrate different aspects of what Chaos is about. So now there's not just like before. It would have just been the Red Corsairs and the Crimson Slaughter, and that would have been it. Yeah. Not anymore. No. There are rules, warlord traits, detachments, and even artifacts for. I think there are 6 different renegade chapters in this book.
Right.
So you've got for Chaos Undivided, you've got the Crimson Slaughter, who we all love, very well established now. The Red Corsairs, obviously the very first official renegade chapter, been around since Second Ed. But on the other hand, we've got the Brazen Claws for Khorne, who are one of the old Demonkin forces. We've got the Purge for Nurgle, who is they're this renegade force of nihilists who believe that the universe is totally corrupt and that the only way of destroying chaos is through chaos. So they pray to Nurgle to release a pandemic that will destroy all life as it exists in the universe.
Good lord.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah. We've got the Scourged for Zeech. And the Scourged are my favourite of the lot, I've got to say. The Scourged are a chapter that were led by a chapter master who lamented the fact that he was forced to kill innocents. He worked very closely with the Inquisition. The Scourged, it looks like in their original incarnation, they may have been created by the Inquisition. But it really hurt the Grand Master of the chapter. He hated the fact that he had to torture and kill innocents. So he prayed just into the ether for the ability to tell when other people were lying. Yeah. And of course Zeech answered him, and as a result, overnight every member of the chapter started to hear in their heads every lie ever spoken by man.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and of course they went mad and then went renegade within like the space of an instant. So they're this mad, crazy force of Zeech lunatics who are wandering around out there, who are constantly tortured by this whispering in their heads. And I think, what's the other one? The one for Slaanesh is the Flawless Host. And the Flawless Host used to be the Silver Blades, and they were obsessed with their own perfection of form and their own perfection of waging warfare. So everything was by the book. Everything had to be pristine for them. But of course that gave way to egotism. And now, as the Flawless Host, they actually believe that they can do no wrong, and that anything else that exists out there that even presents an alternative is an affront to their perfection. So they go out there slaughtering everything just to demonstrate how pristine and perfect they are. It's so cool. And you've got rules for these guys. These guys were just colour schemes once upon a time, and a little bit of background, like a snippet of background. That was it. They were designed to show you what you could do with, off your own back. This is the first time so many Renegade chapters have been actually established in the background, in the rules, and you can do so much. They've blown the door wide for Chaos armies now. You can take... what I'm planning to do with my 1,000 Sons, for example, my Shattered Sons, is to create an allied detachment, which I can use in the same army, that's based around the Scourged. They're allied to them, which will allow me to take a 1,000 Sons force that consists of detachments from the 1,000 Sons Codex, but also from these new Renegade units and chapters and whatnot. It's absolutely amazing. There's so much you can do now. It's insane. It's actually quite big to get a grasp on. You've got to really, Chaos players now, we're in our own sandpit with loads of toys scattered about. What we've got to do is sit down and think, what can we do? What can we do to make this coherent? And what are we going to have to exclude? Because you're going to have to exclude something. Something's going to have to give somewhere. Because there's too much. It's great. There used to be a time when Chaos forces were so restricted in what they could do.
Well, what I'm thinking of here is, do you remember when you had the Black Legion first hit proper, and you had the chapters based around the Four Powers, and you had, here's your Nurgle Marines with all of your normal Chaos Marines, and here is your Khornate Marines with all your normal Chaos Space Marines and Slashy and Zeechy, and then you got the Black Legion, and here they are, and it's just, here is a bunch of Chaos Space Marines. What are they? Space Marines, but chaosy.
Yeah, they're exactly the same. They have the same stats, kind of the same armaments. There's not much different about them, really. But now it looks like they're really trying to move away from that. They're trying to make them very distinct, and it looks like the way they're doing that is by emphasizing their mythological elements, you know? Like their connection to the warp, which is the way to do
definitely.
it. It is the way to do it. It's exactly as they've done with the Havocs, you know? They've made them distinct from Space Marine Devastators by emphasizing the fact that the warp has touched them and has reformed them as according to what they do and how they operate and how they act and how they feel psychologically. That's what the warp does. On top of that, I missed that whole section. We've got the new Dark Apostle.
Yeah.
Oh, that's my favourite of the lot.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
I love him.
Thing is incredible.
He is spectacular. But also the fact that again, exactly what we were talking about. They're trying to remove the Dark Apostles from the Space Marine chaplains.
Yes.
Both in terms of how they function and how they look. So the new model is just spectacular. It's one of my favourite Chaos models they've ever released. It looks so bloody good. But on top of that, we've also got these new menials. These cultists that follow him around bearing like sacred tomes and carrying reliquaries and arcane artifacts and whatnot, which also have a function in game, by the way. But the rules for the Dark Apostle have totally changed. They've totally changed. He is not like the Space Marine chaplains anymore. He doesn't have the aura effect, for one thing.
Right.
He doesn't have that anymore. Instead, what they've done is gone down the Khorne Bloodbound route. He's got prayers that he can choose from. There's a whole discipline of prayers in the Vigilus book that you can select from every turn, and then you roll a dice to see if the gods answer the prayer. And the reliquaries and all of that kind of thing enhance the likelihood that it will come about. Bloody brilliant. Bloody brilliant. I mean, that's how it should have been in the first place. They should never have been just like the Chaos equivalent of chaplains. They should have had something a bit more special. Because for one thing, their gods exist.
Yes, and they wander around, almost physically at times. There is manifestations of them.
Exactly.
Whilst...
And where are they going to manifest? They're going to manifest where the faith is strongest.
Whilst the Emperor...
So it makes sense.
Yeah, not so much.
The Emperor doesn't really answer prayers, does he? He's not that kind of god, to be honest. He's not that kind of deity.
No, he's a lot more judo. No, let's not get into those jokes. Let's not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's not.
I've got an entire joke about Theresa May on the Golden Throne, but I'm going to leave that one alone as well. Leave that one alone as well.
Yeah. Let's not allow that poison in here. But honestly, that surprised me too. I'm surprised that they didn't. I thought they might give them a little update, but I didn't realise they go this whole hog. Where there are now, I don't know how many prayers there are in the book, but apparently there are loads. Mm-hmm. There are absolutely loads you can select from, and you can select a different one at the beginning of each turn.
Yes, that I have heard that.
That's brilliant. So you've got these guys floating around. You've got the new Demonkin stuff that acts as buffs for Chaos forces. You've got that new Master of Discord thing.
Is that the guy who's got the two scribes with him?
No, that's the Dark
All right,
Apostle.
I've seen him and I've seen the two scribes, but I haven't actually seen who the scribes go with.
The scribes go with the Dark Apostle, and they are like you have the ability to enhance his ability to cast the prayers basically through them, which is really cool.
Because one of the things that I quite like that's happening at the moment is there is a push forward for almost the citizenry of the 40k universe to turn up on the battlefield, and also in other little various games and whatnot. And seeing those scribe guys, as I say, I saw a picture of the two scribes, and I knew that they went with somebody, but I didn't know who they went with.
Yep.
This is because I've had a very busy week and I haven't had a chance to really look at stuff.
I love the one that's got like the Vox caster just implanted in his face. Like he's not got a face anymore. It's just like a big Vox caster. I mean, this is something they could do now. They could actually really go to town exploring what the mortal followers of Chaos are like in the 40k universe, because the Chaos Space Marines are kind of rare. When they fight in the background, they're accompanied by these entire hordes of mortal followers that they sort of herd before themselves, They use as cannon fodder. So what about them? I mean, I know we've had the cultist entry, but for me, they could do so much more with that now.
There's
so much more.
I can't remember which one it was, but in the You know, they released those little short books, the little novellas, last year, I think it was. In one of those books, Steel Demon, I think it could have been, there's a sequence where they talk about the Chaos Forces pushing forward the slaves and people they'd kidnapped out of homes. So there's this human meat shield in front of them.
Yep.
As horrible as that sounds, I would love to see something like that translated onto the battlefield.
Absolutely.
Just
yeah,
people.
Totally.
You know?
And also, just people. And also, what about the citizens of the demon worlds? Because they do have citizens, you know. They do have citizens. I mean, I know that the way they're painted is these anarchic, sort of chaotic, like hellscapes, but actually that's not entirely true.
Oh, no.
If you look at the background, like take the Plague Planet, for example, that Mortarion rules over, that has society. It actually has civilization and structure, and there are these entire civilizations across its plains and on its slopes, on the mountains, of like diseased, eternally tormented human beings, of mutants and beastmen and all sorts of things. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see a bit more of that. The Sorciarius, the world of the Thousand Suns, there's not just Zarngor running around on it. There's all sorts of things. There are mortal wizards and cults and all sorts of things on it. So I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more of that. The word bearers, of course, Sicarius.
Yes.
Sicarius has a massive mortal population, like enormous mortal population if you look at the background. So really, Wordbearer's forces should consist maybe more of mortal followers than it does of space marines.
Yeah, that would make sense.
It would make a great deal of sense, wouldn't it? More of that. Come on, give us more of that. I want to see them. I want to see what they look like.
At this point in time, don't ask for more.
I know, right? It's insane. But I mean, what I was talking about for the Master of Discord, I think he's called. He's the big guy he's the sort of corrupted Hellforge guy who's riding the demon engine.
The Venom Crawler.
Jesus.
Oh, that thing.
Oh, there's the Venom Crawler. Yeah, but there's this guy too, who's riding his big sort of spidery demon engine. He's like riding the back of it, and he basically is like a buffer for demon engines. So he's kind of very Iron Warriors in nature. But he can make a detachment of demon engines, which you can take now, by the way, really viable.
Oh, good lord.
Yeah, I know, right?
Oof.
Really viable.
Oof.
It's just insane, isn't it? The stuff they've done.
The scale of it.
Yeah, I know, right? And I love this new dynamic, I've got to say, where you don't have to get new codexes. They don't have to be like these big releases. They can look at what they've done with the Chaos Forces. They've looked at what doesn't work.
Yes.
Yeah. And they've introduced new units and new abilities that make them work, that plug the gaps. It's brilliant. It's what more. Yes, this is what should be done.
You know,
this is what should be done.
You've got me thinking here.
Little updates.
You've got me thinking of something here. And this may be a really bad idea, but let's see what you think of it.
Yeah.
What if you could get a start collecting box of some description that was based around one of the planets in the Eye of Terror? The reason I'm thinking of this is, I can't remember the name of it, the planet that Fabius Bile goes to in Primogenitor.
The Eldar world.
Is it Eldar world?
It's an old Eldar world. It's a Khorne world, isn't it? It's like it used to be once upon a time. It's the one where Fulgrim ascended.
Yes.
What's it called? I can't remember his name.
But I remember there was the guy there who was like the chief magistrate, for want of a better term, the immortal guy who could not in any way, shape or form die. Imagine, if you will, some kind of cult army based around that you could get a... Because, that guy, he may not be the most powerful, not the most threatening character on the battlefield, but he takes a last shot, goes down for a turn, and then gets back up again.
It's interesting,
on the battlefield,
isn't it? It's interesting.
That would be fantastic. Yeah, he doesn't do a huge amount of damage, but you just cannot put him down.
There is precedent for this. They did do this once upon a time. Do you remember in Second Ed? The Second Ed Chaos Codex had two appendix codices, right? It had the Chaos Cultist list and the Demon World Army list. this is what it is. This is what it could be, that a demon world army list, you know, where they could look at what life is like on the demon worlds and in the Eye of Terror. Because, you know, as much as the Imperium loves to paint the demon worlds as like these hellscapes, and yeah, they kind of are, but they're about as ordered as many worlds in the Imperium are.
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, for the citizens of the Imperium, I doubt there'd be much difference, to be honest. You know, you, on the worlds of the Imperium, by and large, you are lobotomized. You're basically a slave. You're worked until you drop, basically. And even then, they can cobble you together with cybernetics and make you into a servitor.
That's true. There's a lot going on there, which would actually be better. Grind under the heel of the Imperium, or being terrified that some...
Look at Sorciarius. Look at Sorciarius. Okay, the followers of Zeech are very capricious, and they are as likely to use you as a raw material in one of their sorceress experiments as they are to let you be. But the mortal wizards on Sorciarius are not always sacrifices or anything like that. They have the ability to aspire. They have the ability to become sorcerers themselves, to actually even become Thousand Sons, you know? That possibility is there. So why not? I mean, in the 40k universe, I've always said this, you may as well follow one of the Chaos powers. Why not? At least, I mean, yeah, there's the chance, every chance, that you'll either die on some battlefield somewhere, you'll be overwhelmed by mutation, go mad and become a Chaos Spawn. That is very likely. But on the other hand, look at what you stand to gain.
It also seems a little bit more honest, doesn't it?
It does. Why not?
Which is a weird sentence to say.
It is. There's no other real choice in it for me. There's no in this universe. If I were to materialize in the 40k universe, I would start worshipping Slaanesh, because why not? You may as well. There's no other option. You're just going to die horribly, and then your soul is going to get sucked into the warp anyway, and you're going to become part of chaos anyway, just an unwilling part. Yeah,
you might as well just accept it,
you know?
and just...
You may as well, but what do you stand to gain? What do you stand to gain?
That's true, yeah, if you do well.
Immortality. Yeah. Immortality. Not only immortality, but have you seen what it's like for a demon prince when they ascend? If you read, like, Angel Exterminatus, where Fulgrim ascends, it's beyond ecstasy. It's beyond... It's transcendence that can't even be contained in words, because in Angel Exterminatus, when Fulgrim ascends to his status as the demon Primarch of Slaanesh, he sees all of creation. He sees all of history and all of potential spreading out around him. And for him, reality becomes a playground. It's just this immense, eternal, ever-changing garden of delights.
It's a complete refocusing of all the senses, isn't it? It's the ability to see the
Why
world...
not?
Well, to see all of creation in a completely... unfocused, not unfocused, but an unrestrained manner. Yeah, you're not tied down to the petty moralities of mankind, or even the physics. The petty moralities of physics. It just all of those restrictions go away. The only restrictions you have are those that are placed on you by the patron that ascends you. Yeah. And they're kind of loose as long as you continue to serve, as long as you continue to do, and especially for Slaanesh, because you serve by experiencing. So it's a win-win. It's win-win. You serve by gaining as much experience and pleasure and delight as possible, and you take delight in everything. So why not? Why not? I think I'd probably go for more Zeechian.
I mean... Even Typhus doesn't ascend to the status of Demon Prince, right? But he does ascend to the status that he now occupies as the herald, the traveller of Nurgle. When he ascends in the latest book, The Buried Dagger, which I've just finished reading, by the way, it's gruesome. I mean, it's gross as all hell, as you can imagine. It's like his guts are hanging out. He's got like these insects swarming all through him, just chewing his bones and his marrow. But you know what he says as that's happening? He's standing in the midst of this, and he's like the most wretched thing in creation. You know, he's diseased, he's disgusting, he's bloated. He says, through this phlegm and blood in his mouth, he says, "More."
Oh, God. Wow.
Yeah? It changes the thing. This is the thing people don't get about chaos. It changes your perception so much that it doesn't matter. you kind of take absolute delight in this stuff. So really, for me, it would either be Nurgle or Slaanesh that I go for. Because again, it doesn't really matter. You have to go through hell to get to both of them. But where you get there, it's like it's wonderful. The Plague Marines don't lament their own states.
No, they see it as a badge of honor, don't they?
They love it. They absolutely love it. Their perceptions are so distorted that they've learned to take pleasure in their conditions, and it's creepy and it's weird, but at least they're happy.
True enough.
Which is more than you can say for almost every other entity or race in the 40k universe.
There's a thought here. I think it was in one of the Conrad trilogy, way back in the mists of time, where Conrad is talking to a Chaos Warrior, a Chaos Champion, and they discuss how... It's a really weird experience, actually, because he's just sitting there discussing with a Chaos Champion.
It's an odd thing, isn't it?
It's one of the few cool parts of those books that stands up to the test of time. If you haven't read the Conrad trilogy, read the Wikipedia, because the actual books are terribly written. Which was
yes, early Games Workshop. It's very.
I loved those books to bits when I was a kid, when I was like 13 or so, and then I came back to them about 4 years ago, and these are awful. But anyhow, they discuss it, and the champion, he is the champion of Slaanesh. He says about...
I know the Slaanesh ones. I mean, the Slaanesh ones you can have discussions with. They are civilized. I mean, the Slaanesh and Tzeentch ones in particular, and the Nurgle ones actually, they're fully willing to sit down and have a chat with you. It's just the Khorne ones you need to watch out for.
Which actually leads to a really cool part later on in the book, where they bring out the sacrifice, and they sacrifice just starts screaming Khorne's name and jumps out and devours the head magister's face. But anyway, so they're in this discussion, and they said, so... why did you do this? What led you to this point? What has been the end game? And the champion says, well, the end game is going to be that when I ascend, I will be more powerful than I was ever in mortal life.
Yeah.
The downside is that whilst I still have mortal life, my will is no longer my own.
Yeah.
The soul, they become the strings at the puppeteer. They are no longer mine to dance.
Absolutely.
I really like that as a concept, that you're willing to sacrifice who you are in order to become more than you could ever be.
More than you could ever be. Yeah, absolutely. And it's an interesting thing. I mean, one of the caveats they always put onto the descriptions of demon princes is because they have ascended, they are now the puppets and tools of their gods. And that's absolutely true. There is some truth to that. However, they're no more restricted than they were when they were mortal. The parameters that exist around them are actually very loose, and they're still very much themselves. If you look at Magnus... he's still very much Magnus the Red. He's still the same guy. Fulgrim is still the same guy. Mortarion is very much the same guy, but he's a bit mad. He's a bit addled. He's diseased and weird. Angron's no different. Angron's exactly the same as when he was mortal. He's a lunatic. He's just emphasized to the nth degree. So... really, it's only thrown in there as a way of making the demon princes seem a little less attractive than they actually are. For my money, the broadening of scope and experience and the state of operation that being a demon prince brings you, the fact that you can operate outside of physics and time and all of this stuff, is more than worth the price.
Yes.
It's more than worth the price. So, yeah.
Well, if you think about, how much a cinema ticket costs these days for 2 hours of entertainment, it scales. It's... the theory doesn't quite work out, but, you spend 50 quid for something to eat and get a cinema ticket to go see a film, 4 hours of your life, you might enjoy yourself. Or the rest of your life you hand over to a Chaos Power and then become a Demon Prince. Yeah, I think it's a fair exchange.
In that universe, it's like, why not? Why not?
No, we were talking about Vigilus.
Anyway, we were talking about Vigilus, but it's just so exciting. I mean, for more than anything, for me, this demonstrates that the Games Workshop are really concentrating on what they need to do with these armies, you know? They're looking at things like, how are we carrying them forward aesthetically? What are they supposed to look like? What makes them distinct? You've seen the new Chaos Space Marine box set.
Yes.
Friggin' gorgeous. I mean, friggin' gorgeous. It's got everything you want, really, from Chaos Space Marines. They're just mutated enough. They're just removed from Space Marines enough to make them distinct, but still recognizable as Space Marines. They're absolutely beautiful. And this is something that's carried through the range of the new miniatures, it seems to me. There is this unifying element that they never had before, where you can see the common elements between them. It makes them so much more distinct, so much more interesting, and that is something they are obviously concentrating on, as well as, like, what do we need to do in rules terms to make these units work, to make these armies viable. For me, this is how it always should have been. It's dynamic. It means that if there's a problem, they can just introduce something new to change it. They don't have to wait like X amount of years for the new codex or the new miniatures range to drop, which is what they used to have to do.
There's something about the mentality of how things get released at the moment that I don't know if it's that they've taken the model from somewhere else, but it's completely unrecognizable to the last 15 years, where that instead of just throwing an entire load of stuff at you at once, which is something that we were complaining about beforehand, actually, but it's in a different way. There is a drip feed mentality. So here is the beginnings of this. Here is the next part of this. Here is the big release of this, and here is the after effect of this.
It's the teasing thing.
I think it is. Yeah, it's
very clever. It's brilliant marketing. I've got to say, it's brilliant marketing. It works so well because it makes you excited. It kind of G's you up. On a psychological level, it's absolutely brilliant. You know, you want to know, you want to see, you get excited because you see this teaser and you're like, what is that? What could that be part of? And then when it explodes, when you actually see what it is, it has this effect, you know? It's very clever. It's very clever. Because, you know, for my money, I want everything. I'm just like a big kid now. Just get me everything.
I know the feeling well. There's been some stuff that's dropped recently, which has me clawing at the air, ineffectually screaming for the fact that this is never going to end, is it?
No, actually, it isn't, and it's like what we were saying before. I think what needs to happen is almost like a change in the way fans engage with the hobby because of the new dynamic.
Definitely.
You know, because it's just not possible to do everything now. There's too much good stuff. I mean, given the time, given immortality, really, and the resources, I'd be collecting armies of the Flesh Eater Corps and probably the Skaven and probably the various forces of the undead, the Night Haunts. I'd probably be collecting Word Bearers and Thousand Sons and Emperor's Children, maybe the Night Lords as well because I like them too a lot. Some of the Craft Worlds, probably Drukhari. Yes, Homunculi Covenants. I'll be doing some of them. It's just not possible.
No, it's like we were discussing before the show and last time we spoke. I've had to make the decision that 40k has to be dropped because I can't keep up. I cannot run a 40k army because my destruction army is huge and requires a lot of time and painting. Skaven are now out and they are great and I love them to bits and I still don't have no holes for them.
Just got the book, by the way.
It's so good, isn't it?
It's really bloody good, like Beastmen.
It blew me away of how good that book is. The mythology of it, all the stuff that's between the lines that they don't come out and just say.
No, it's just teased, isn't it? Again, Dark Souls. I'm telling you, this is how Dark Souls does its mythology. I am telling you, someone at that design studio has played the Dark Souls series and is like, "Wow, this is what we need to do."
I think you're probably right. I think you're probably bang on the money.
Keep it up. That's not a complaint.
No.
That's a big ask.
Yes, please, more of this. And then I've got the undead, and then I also want to do Caradron, and then I've got urges to do a massively converted Ideneth squid crab army. I want to make the Ideneth have big crab claws and things and tentacle faces.
Yeah, so sort of like Davy Jones' lot from the Pirates
just
of the
go
Caribbean,
full deep one with them.
Oh, to have a Davy Jones like character leading the Iron Death would be great.
Great
wouldn't
fun.
it? I wouldn't be able to resist though. I wouldn't be able to. Do you fear death? You know, that dark abyss?
But he would have to be standing in a bucket.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I'd have to have
Of
the
course,
hat,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
afraid.
definitely.
Yeah.
But and that's not even getting
dear.
into how the fact that the Gloomspite Gits are now a full army in themselves. So I want to do something with them rather than just have them as part of the destruction force I've been running.
I just want to emphasise, Games Workshop, take none of this as a
No.
complaint. None of this. As I said before, it is lovely to have this complaint. This is glorious. This is delirious. This is a very British way of explaining pleasure by complaining about it. You know, it's what you should be doing, guys. I mean, you know, our fan base is a really good example of this. I mean, everyone's so excited.
Yeah.
Everyone's sort of bubbly and kiddy and kind of like, oh, what's next? Oh, this is exciting. It's how it should be.
It's like when
you know?
Shadow Spear hit, right? And this is, I don't really want to just spend time waxing lyrical about how much I love the group that we put together, because that sounds really egotistical, but it's not. This is...
Well, to be honest, that was nothing
No.
to do with us. That just kind of happened naturally, didn't it? We just put the podcast out and made the Facebook page. But the people themselves have actually made it what it should be, which is great.
But one of the greatest things I think I'll take to my grave as just being this moment of pure joy was when the Primaris Jump Pack shoot guys came out, and just the sheer amount of photoshops that came out, and there wasn't anybody saying, "Oh, these are terrible. I don't really want to do anything with these."
There was no negativity
it was just
about it. No.
fun poking at the stupidity of it.
Sort of
And I think it was
cheering, wasn't it? It was sort of like good-natured ribbing. Yeah?
Nick Davidson's picture of them on trampolines had me laughing for
that
a week.
was the best thing.
I was legitimately weeping at the end of that. It was so good.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. I mean, you know, to be fair to Games Workshop, the Chaos Space Marines got all of
They
this
really
stuff.
did. Yeah, there's no two ways about it.
And it's about time.
The Primaris have had their time in the sun. They can...
Absolutely. It's time for the demon
Exactly.
now.
There is one thing...
But yeah,
sorry, Garen.
Yes. No,
There is one
ahead,
thing I want to talk about a little bit. There's actually two things I want to talk about a little bit. Do you have anything else for Vigilus that you want to get into before?
No, I think, beyond getting into spoilers about the background, and by the way, what I've read, I really like the background for the Vigilus stuff. It's really cool. One thing I will spoil, Marnius and Abaddon do have a bit of a...
What?
Abaddon kicks his ass.
Good. What I'd like to do is to do the, when Vigilus is over, do an entire overview of the storyline. I think that...
Yeah, because it's like changing a lot now, isn't it? Stuff is happening out there. It's like,
in the same way that I really wanted to do one for the Gathering Storm, but never managed to get the time together to do it.
Yes. Actually, there's a lot of stuff in the Gathering Storm. It's very difficult to sort of chronicle.
To make a
because there's like 3 books. You know, there's 3 books there. It's a lot of
remember,
stuff.
it says me right the second, and it's how the second or the third book, it kind of jumps around the timeline a bit, doesn't it? Yeah.
It does, actually. You get... Because you've got stuff happening on Cadia, you know, with Inquisitor Greyfax and with Trazin the fucking Infinite. You who have, like, conversations with one another. It's like, what the hell's going on there? And Saint Celestine and all of those guys. Then you've got the stuff happening on Ultramar, you know, with the resurrection of Robert Gilliman and the Inari and stuff on the moon with Magnus. And it's all over the place. It's weird. It's all over the place.
I will actually say the Inquisitor Greyfax audio drama starring Catherine Tate. Very good. There's a couple of bits in there that brought the chills up my spine. And the interesting thing about it is that it deals entirely with the more religious side of Terra, which is something you don't really get to hear a lot of.
No, but it's something that they're going to have to discuss soon. Because there's tensions there that need addressing.
Yeah. Oh, they'll get to them. They'll get to them. I have no doubt of that. It'll be on the list. But the two things I really wanted to get into, one is just a little throwaway thing of how good is the Talon of Horus?
Yeah, I know, right? I knew you'd love it. I knew you'd love it. I mean, I know we do it all the time. Aaron Dembski Bowden, he's the best writer in the Black Library. Yeah, he is. He's so good. Yeah, he's so good.
On your recommendation, I went off and I got it, and I got through it, and it's probably the fastest I've got through anything in a long time.
Iskander Chaos.
Yes. What a character.
What a fucking character. Oh, he's so
I had to keep
cool,
reminding myself that these are the bad guys, so to speak.
These are the bad guys, so to speak. Yeah, his relationship with his familiar and that dark elf, that Drakari thing that he has. It's so cool.
He cares for them, you know.
He cares. He actually gives a shit. I love it. You know, he turns up in John French's books
I didn't.
too.
Oh.
Yeah, he turns up in the Araman series, and as you can imagine, there's a lot of tensions between him and
Yes,
Araman.
I can definitely see that.
Lots
Well,
of
it's the
tensions.
Araman books are the next ones I'm going to try.
John French is about on the level of Aaron Dembski-Bowden. He's really good, and the Araman books are spectacular.
I have to admit, after it's not that it's a slow book. That's not the way I'd describe it. But there's a lot of people talking in Talon of Horus.
Yeah, it's not whiz
No.
multiple. It's all politics. It's all politics.
Yeah, it's something I really enjoyed. But when the action gets going, the certain how to take out a planet in one easy step.
Ha! It's the best scene in the book. I love it. I love the notion of a Zetan sorcerer chucking I think it's like a Gloriana class vessel. So like a citadel-sized vessel at a city on a planet with his psychic powers. It's so cool.
And then there's the end of the book.
Oh yeah. There's one line. I am not your son. Ah, yes. So cool.
Because there's so many readings of that I'm not your son because of what you are. I'm not your son because I have surpassed you. There's so many ways of looking at that. But
I reject you. I reject the world you tried to create. I reject your weakness.
Oh man,
so cool. So now the Talon of Horus has killed 2 Primals.
Yeah, true. By the way, spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoilers, by the way.
But no, the entire sequence that involves the 2 great lines of "I believe that's my claw," and and of course the genius that is, "I am not your son."
Yeah.
The hair stood on the back of my neck with that one. That was a proper dear.
What I love about it though is Abaddon.
Yes.
He is so far removed from what you'd expect.
He's
him to
lovely.
be, isn't he? He's actually really cool. You know the way he insists that the Black Legionaries don't bow to him. They call him brother. It's like, oh, I like that.
But
there's just like an egalitarian quality to him.
The bit that stands out for me for Abaddon's character in that book is when they implant the living computer. I can't think what it's called.
Oh yes, the Kion's sister.
When they implant that, and she becomes very ferocious and predatory when she melds with the ship's AI.
She's actually melded with the vengeful spirit, hasn't she?
And
so cool.
There's a bit where he snaps off the order of no, leave them. That they will survive, they will go, they will tell everybody what we've done here. And she's like, and she starts snarling and growling and says, I can kill them, I can hunt them down, rip and tear your guts. And he just stops and just goes, peace. We have work to do.
This is what Abaddon's like in these books. He's not bellowing sort of fist-crashing warlord. No. He's this quiet, reasonable, sagacious guy. When they first find him in the Vengeful Spirit and he's in this museum area of it, and he's kind of laughing and he's kind of who cares about any of this stuff anymore?
Yeah.
He's moved on so much, this guy.
He is such an amazing character in those books.
Yeah. Yeah, he's really cool. And all the characters around him are great too.
The Khorne guy, he's brilliant.
His name is Urkris, isn't it? Something Leovine Urkris. Yeah, he's reasonable. Him and Kion get on. They respect one another. The Emperor's children tell him Archon.
I think the bit I like is just where he gets really angry and the butcher's nails start up and he's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to cry like I found you? Yeah. And then later on he says, I'm sorry I said that.
Yes, I'm sorry, I know. You get this kind of he respects Kion, doesn't he? He respects him. And there is this mutual respect between them. And he acknowledges this guy that the butcher's nails are making him insane, I love that. I'm sorry I said that. It's so
You just don't
brilliant.
expect a hulking Khorne Space Marine to apologise.
To apologise to you. It's just brilliant. Absolutely. Yes, Talon of Horus. Get it. It's
And
so
speaking of Khorne, I wanted to have a quick conversation about the Blades of Khorne book, the battle tome for Age of Sigmar. And the reason of that
totally
is
unexpected.
it's very much what you'd expect. It's very good. It's very well written. The artwork in it is glorious. The kinetic, frantic energy that they've brought to it. There's a sequence where they're talking about all the different type of priests, slaughter priests that you can get, and the artwork. It's all got that very push to the extreme movement. It is just one of the most kinetic bits of work I've seen.
Which suits Khorne
massively
really well,
so.
doesn't it? Because it is a kind of kinetic force, isn't it?
It's you hit and never stop moving.
Exactly, yeah.
But one of the things I found really interesting is in the same way that there was a slight shift in the Horned Rat with the Skaven book, which made him into the Chaos God of Entropy. When I say to you, what is Khorne the Chaos God of? What would be your answers?
Core emotion, anger, rage. But he's the god of violence and war and hatred and martial superiority.
Yeah, there is that.
Honor.
There's very much honor, which is a very interesting thing in the book. But one of the things that's come through is there's another part to him which feeds him.
That's interesting.
And it's sheer bloody-minded determination.
Determination, yeah, that makes sense.
It really does, and it's quite an interesting idea, because if you...
like strength of will, yeah?
So if you think about that in a broader sense, you remove it from the battlefield, and you put it into city life. You are helping to feed Khorne by being determined to get the job, or to take your wares to the next place, no matter how bad the weather is.
So there's an element of dominion.
There really is.
Of like it's almost a Darwinian like ascendancy.
It is survival of the fittest. Only the strongest survive.
That makes sense for Khorne. That makes a lot of sense for Khorne.
But I like the fact... I mean, during the book, there isn't any point where it says, Khorne gets really happy when a farmer manages to make his crops grow in bad ground. It doesn't. It's not in there.
Yeah.
But once again, reading between the lines, the idea that Khorne can be fed and sated and pleased with somebody who has no intention of ever picking up a sword, but has struggled against the odds.
Right. So there's some overlap with Nurgle.
There really is.
That's kind of cool.
It reminds me of The Name of the Wind, which if you haven't read, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, go read The Name of the Wind. It is probably the greatest fantasy novel you will ever read in your life. It is just amazing, and jettisons all the fantasy stuff and just becomes a story about a guy in a fantasy world. And it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But there's a sequence in Name of the Wind where this kid, he's probably about 10 at this point, he has been through hell. His parents and his entire world has been taken from him. He has survived in the wilds. He's got nothing, and he comes to the city, and he almost has a chance. He almost gets there. He almost has a chance to get back into the world, so to speak, but he misses it through his own stubbornness, for want of a better term.
Right.
And so he has to live there in this city on the streets, learning. And I was thinking about this when I was reading the Khorne book. That's what would be the people who feed Khorne that would never know that they do so. The people who have lost everything, but they are determined to stay alive, determined to survive the next day, determined to carry on.
That's very Nurgle again. There is this sincere overlap between the two of them. That's very cool. Just as there is overlap between like Tzeentch and Slaanesh,
But it's the change of Khorne when the Mortal Realms first dropped, which is the vast wastelands of chaos-infested world where everybody is holding on to society by the skin of their teeth. Society has rose and fallen again. This is society coming back up, and so there is these little moments in the books where you kind of get an idea of what the society is to the Chaos Gods. How does it survive in these bustling metropolises? One of the things that really stood out to me is, as I was thinking about it, none of this ever existed in the old Warhammer Armies books.
No, it didn't. No, I mean, Khorne in particular was just the battlefield, wasn't it? There was nothing else, really.
And I think that's really cool. I love the idea of seeing how things work within cities and towns and villages.
It is brilliant, isn't it? And what I love is they've woven that into the backgrounds. They've actually made that the basis for some of the Chaos armies. I mean, the Disciples of Tzeentch, obviously, they don't operate on the battlefield, really. They operate in cities and in structures of civilization.
Because that's where Tzeentch's power is going to come from. But then again, once again, it's the different facets of the power. How does it work in different areas? When you're out in the wilderness, something like Khorne is going to be the
dominant power, I suppose.
You're out in the wilderness, it is going to be how hard can you hit this guy in the face with your hammer. But the further removed you get from those really bestial environments, it has to change. It has to become something else. And they've done a really good job in giving you a slight idea of how that works.
That's brilliant, because you've never had that before.
Never.
Khorne never had any province in civilization before, outside of like military structures. That's brilliant. That's really cool. That's the kind of thing I really want to see more of.
Yeah, totally. And I'm quite happy that they don't have like an entire page of how Khorne works in cities. Yeah, I like
No, because that would be too blunt, wouldn't it? It'd be too overt.
I like the fact that, especially with the Beast of Chaos book, the Skaven book, there's these little story hooks that are just left in there for you. It's up to you to work out what to do with them. Crikey, the amount of short story ideas I've had from reading the Khorne and Skaven book and the Flesh Eater Courts book. Good.
Yeah, the Flesh Eater Courts book is really good, actually.
The stuff that's in there that's made me come up with various ideas for both short stories and how to run a Flesh Eater Court army. Because what I want to do is just model a load of rags on them. Because I think it'd be really cool if they were just slightly wearing Bretonnian helmets and things.
Oh, that'd be brilliant. Yeah, you could have equivalents of the knights, it'd be so cool.
Oh, it would be.
And I love the idea of like a Varghul or something, like a really big monster, but which has like a distorted helmet so you can't see his face. That's great.
What I thought of doing was having a pair of ghouls on top of each other. So one believes that he is the knight and the other one believes he is the horse.
Oh, God, that's brilliant. Yeah. Cavalry.
Just on his shoulders.
Brilliant. Absolute brilliance.
But unfortunately, I cannot in any good faith start a Flesh Eater Court army. So I'm going to leave that idea for Andy. Andy can do that with his Flesh Eater Courts because I know how much he loves them.
Brilliant.
And also you, Tom, because I think Tom bought some Flesh Eater Courts this week as well. So, yeah.
Awesome.
So,
awesome
is there anything else that you want to bring up and discuss? Or...
I think that's it for now. There's so much right now. I think we can't pack it all into one show and do it justice.
No. What we're going to do, just to peek behind the curtain, is we're going to try and get another show out this week where we're going to talk about all the stuff that's come out from Adepticon last night. But we had to get through Vigilus before we could get to that.
Oh, yes, totally. Had to be done. Had to be expressed.
Yes, without a doubt.
It had to be expressed.
So what I'll do is I'm going to give you the next hashtag Ask the Fluffenhammer, Fluffenhammer Ask, but we won't read it out in the next show. We'll read it out on the show afterwards, which will probably be my last show until I get back from the wedding and honeymoon. But that's something.
Christ.
Yeah, because we're getting up to that. Oh my word! Oh,
it's starting to occur, isn't it? It is starting
6
to
weeks.
Occur.
6 weeks away.
6 weeks, is it?
Yeah, I'm starting to panic.
Yeah, scary stuff. Scary stuff.
So, the Fluffenhammer Asks for this episode is going to be dedicated to the Chaos Powers.
Oh,
and
cool.
my question is, the 8-sided star of Chaos, or the 4-sided star, whichever way you want to look at it, has always been like a compass. North, east, west, south, and the 4 Chaos Powers are on there. Slaanesh is rising up again, so chances are Slaanesh is going to knock the Horned Rat from the Pantheon.
I think it's quite likely.
So I like the idea of having the 8-pointed star being the 8 Chaos Gods, the 4 main, 4 major, 3 minor. 4 minor, sorry. I'll start that again. 4 major, 4 minor. Why do I keep saying 3? So Khorne, Nurgle, Slaanesh and Tzeentch as the 4 major, Horned Rat as a minor. I want you guys to tell me what the other 3 minor Chaos Gods would be.
And what their aspects would be, you know, what would they look like, and what names would they have?
I mean, there's stuff in the various fictions that you could bring out and talk about. You know, you could make the argument that Nagash could be in there, but you know,
you can make that argument. He could certainly, I mean, given the chance, he could certainly ascend to the Pantheon. I can't imagine Nurgle being happy about it, but he could certainly give it a go. Or Slaanesh, for that matter. Slaanesh doesn't like Nagash.
Extra points if you manage to get Hashut in there and tell me what he is the Chaos God of. Yes,
well done.
If you can do that, you get extra points. So that's the Fluffenhammer asks. So hashtag Fluffenhammer asks, what would be the other 3 minor Chaos Gods? And what are their powers? All right.
Yeah, what would they be? What would they appeal to in mortal dreams and whatnot?
Aye. So that's it. And I think with that, then, we are going to get out of here. As always, thank you very much, George, for taking the time on this Thursday morning.
Pleasure. Even more pleasure next time, obviously, because we're going to be talking about a lot of pleasure next time.
Bovine pleasure. Moving on, and thank you so much to everybody listening at home.
Yes, thank you guys. Always appreciated. Thank you so much.
Without you guys, we would be just talking to the abyss. If you would like to give us a hand, go and rate us on iTunes. It, as I realise, would push us up the ranks a little bit and help other people find us. Or review us any way you want. Share us out, you know. Give us a hand.
Send us
Spread us around like the muck encrusted from the back of a fertiliser spreader. Go on. Do it. Yes. And with that, I say good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Prepare now,